Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. For those keeping count, this is episode 302. We're going to talk about telling better scary stories, or maybe maximum carnage. I don't know yet because I brought the Wonder Twins on, and you know how that all works. You know, shape of a bucket. That's back at 80s. Most people aren't even going to recognize or remember who they are. So I brought on Rob Nelson and Brian Wixson. Wixson. That's hard to say.
It is harder to spell.
But, only one of you had the foresight to put one of my books behind them.
That was all Brian's idea. He's the mastermind behind that.
Yeah.
But, it's ironic. Although, I think I met both of you guys at the same time on LinkedIn. And you're both getting to be very prolific writers. Mostly in the screen, I guess screenplays, whatever, in the big screen stuff.
Correct.
But,
Yeah.
it's I don't write like that. I'm not even I can't even say I'm a fan of horror. Jaws did it for me. I can't even go in the water. But I think one of my favorite zombie shows is that Warm Bodies, and it's not even scary. But
Actually, a very good movie.
You guys are starting to take things to a whole different level when it comes to, like I said, telling better scary stories. And your new book, Memorial Day, was really going up the charts on Amazon, and people really seem to like it.
Yeah, that was Rob's idea to have it published into into the book format, and obviously I was all for it. But I was just like so many other people that were on LinkedIn with us, like, you can do that, and Rob's like, yeah, pretty much you can do anything with a book. But yeah, I was like, people are literally reading the script between covers, and it's been amazing the turnout that we've had from the LinkedIn community.
And I was reading both your LinkedIn profiles because I before I became a marketing specialist, I hate the word guru. Before I started writing books, I had regular jobs just like everyone else. I was a salesman for Coke. I worked in an injection molding company. I had all these crazy jobs that I hated.
Carpeting, I remember.
And then I owned a carpet cleaning business, and I did that for many, many years. But I think Rob worked in the grocery store environment for a long, long time. And the reason I'm sharing all this for the listeners is that each and every one of us has stories to tell. And those stories, whether they're horror, whether they're sarcasm, for me, it's I gotta have sarcasm in everything I do. But regardless of what that is, what your story is, that story can transform you from working regular job to becoming bigger and better. And I'm not saying it's going to be your fame and fortune, but what it's going to be is your legacy, your gift to people, because you become an entertainer. And
Agreed.
you guys have taking that element of history, of zombies, of horror, and you converted it into a way to entertain people.
Another way to look at it is it's also therapy. All that aggravation, like for me, 31 years of retail, 30 of them being with shoes, as you probably saw. I wrote Al Bundy is my God. But yeah, all that aggression and frustration, everything you get out, you have to deal with, you just put down as you're typing away. For you, it's sarcasm, and for me, it's just how to kill the people that I don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree 100% with Brian. It's it's not about, gaining fame and fortune. It's about doing something that we're passionate about. And, I'm sure with Brian, just like with me, it started well into my teenage years. And, everyday life kind of took over from there on, family responsibilities, like you said, jobs.
Mhm.
But I've never lost the ability to be creative and want to put what's rattling around inside this crazy brain of mine onto paper. So basically, just waking up one day and deciding, I'm not going to let anything stop me from doing what I love to do anymore. Whether I fall flat on my face or I succeed or whatever comes out of it, at least I tried. And for me, that's the most important part. And that's how we've gotten to this point.
Mhm. Well, let's talk about the book. I mean, what was the inspiration? How long did it take? I mean, 'cause I know, over the last 11 years producing 43 books, you know, some books take longer. Some, the process to produce a book sometimes takes years. For me, sometimes it only takes a few months, but I have a system when it comes to sarcastic books. I know exactly how to write it. I know how, but you guys, this is a whole different element than just a book. This is a screenplay. This is something that could instantly become, a movie.
So,
Rob first.
oh, sorry, Brian. Basically, the way that it started was when Brian and I, we'd been friends for a while, of course, once we met on LinkedIn. And, I kind of reached out at some point and said, hey, is there anybody that would kind of like, want to get with me on a project that I'm working on? And, we just started talking back and forth. And Brian just happened to actually mention something as far as the particular genre that we ended up writing. And I was like, you know what? That's funny. I've just started an actual story that takes most of what you're already thinking about. And we just kind of ran from it, from that. It's unfortunate that it took us so long, but fortunately it wasn't a longer period of time. But, you know, again, both of us working full-time jobs, you know, um, outside responsibilities. It took about 6 months
Mhm.
for us to write it from start to finish. But I had actually published a few books before that. But overall, it took about 6 months, and that's the two of us kind of collaborating back and forth, page here, page there, an hour here, an hour there a day, whatever the case may be. But now that we have started actually working more, the current one that we're working on, and I'm not trying to get too far ahead, but this one is coming along a lot smoother and a lot easier because now since we've partnered on one, we basically know how each other thinks,
Mhm.
and we're developing, strategies to make it, move along faster and easier and things like that. So it was kind of a rough go at first, but the end result was actually amazing. I think that it turned out to be very well written. It's got a lot of humor in it, a lot of sarcasm that you may like, and a lot of cultural references to classic horror films. And not to rip anything off, but we took inspiration from the things that we love, and that's what we combined with this one, and it turned out to be a hell of a story.
Yeah, and I think right now people love nostalgia. So anything that
Yeah.
you can do to bring in that nostalgia, that feel good feeling that people are like, wow, I recognize that, or I know where that is. You know, that
Yeah.
it's like,
To piggyback off of what Rob was saying, as far as Memorial Day, he threw out the idea as like, I want to write a horror film about a holiday. So I just first said, well, we know Christmas and Halloween are obviously overdone. Thanksgiving was just about to come out, so that was a no. And I just had to, of course, throw in the sarcasm saying, well, the aliens took over 4th of July, so that's out. I can picture you saying something like that. But so then I go, what about Memorial Day? Because I don't think anyone had ever done that. And so you could actually hear Rob going, A couple days later, he gets back and he says, what if we do it with Revolutionary War soldiers? I was like, cool. I love the outfits. A few days after that, he goes, what if we switch it to Civil War? It's like, still cool. I love their outfits as long as they're not like modern day with fatigues and stuff. That's boring. And then his nickname is Mr. Research. He came up with Confederate Memorial Day, which I did not know was a thing, but it's still a thing down south. And we just ripped the hell out of Confederate Memorial Day. Research this, research that, voodoo, all this kind of stuff, not to give too much away, but it's like we were almost like one-upping each other with the research. It was fabulous.
I think that's exactly what you need to do. And you know, for all the aspiring writers that are listening, you know, some of my books do have research. Some of them don't. You know, the whole Rob versus books is just my conversation with scammers and morons and lousy customer service. And a lot of them do not get the references that I'm throwing out. You know, so
one did.
I get on a call with somebody and you know, I go into a Star Wars reference. They have no idea. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Or I'll do a Weird Al reference. Again, no idea. And I'm thinking, what third world country are you living in?
Right.
Well, you did put in your book that one person realized it was Fifth Element. Did you just Fifth Element me? And you were like, yep. You're like, I can't finish the sentence.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's those classic references do well, you know, especially in horror movies, because I don't think people want a strict slasher movie. They want something that has a mixture of sarcasm, of history, and maybe a little gore. But
yeah,
you know, it's because with Jaws, you didn't see the shark until the end, you know, so it led up to something. You know? But with the like the Freddy slasher movies, to me, after the first movie, it was everything else was the same. You know,
I gave it 2. Once you got to the 3D and all that, it was no. And the same thing with Jason. Is like up to 2, that would have been it. After that, it was just camp.
Yeah,
so it was overkill, pun intended.
And what's bad is, you know, my son's named Jason. He was born on the 13th. We live on Elm Street, and I'm like,
oh no. Oh.
So yeah, Brian and I actually had a conversation this morning, as a matter of fact, when we both agreed that we don't know if any or how many people will actually catch the references that we put in our scripts, because you know they're so random, and to be quite honest, there's no forethought to it. It's just whatever pops in our head when we're writing. And I mentioned to Brian this morning, you know, to me, you know, it's okay to have a general plot line and outline of how you want to lay your story out. But we actually sit at the computer, whether it's in my office, his office, whatever the case may be. And as we're typing or reading what the other person has written already, we're laughing at what we're doing because it's so crazy. And it's so random and it's so just out there. And, you know, here I am giggling like a little kid because he's wrote something that, you know, is completely absurd, but it fits. You have moments of horror, but then you also have comic relief, and it all blends so well together. It's undeniable. And we were talking about that this morning, and we couldn't believe that some of the stuff that we're throwing out there, you know, that we're both coming up with, it's almost like we're reading each other's minds. And that's why we work so well together.
Yeah. One of the phrases that we have together is that we're 2 halves of the same mind, because we're so in tune with each other. And actually the same idea when Rob was saying about not really following a plot line. At the beginning of the new script that we're working on, we have 2, for lack of a better word, idiots sitting at a diner counter, and they make some off comments at a television screen. We just thought it would be a one-off. And here we are, like 70 pages later, they're turning out to be some of the heroes of the film. We're like, what the heck did that happen?
Yeah,
It just seemed to fit.
Yeah.
this morning I was having a text conversation with my buddy, and he says, "Let's do after 12, no rush." So I respond, "Oh man, I like Rush. Limelight and Tom Sawyer are rocking." He says, "Man," he goes, "Wham was better." I'm like, "Wham? You better adjust your meds."
Yeah.
Oh
This is
boy.
the humor I have every single day. And people are like, "Rob, you are nuts." But the thing is that I think we as creatives, we have to keep our brain fresh. We have to learn other things besides, who we are, so that we can put references like that into books, into podcasts, into interviews, because
Hmm.
those people who are like us will catch it really quickly. Those people that aren't will get triggered, and that's what I want. I want more triggered people.
Of course, more triggers,
Right.
more books.
Right. And all these cultural references that we're putting in our scripts, it's the things that inspired both of us to write the kinds of stories that we do, because the things that I write about is what I loved as a kid and probably love even more now as an adult. And you want to keep that alive, that nostalgia,
Mhm.
and for future generations, and just keep the ball rolling. I actually have in jokes, and Brian laughs at me every time I write one in, which, by the way, we have not added to our new script yet, but it's coming. So I basically have an in joke for different characters in each script, of course, but it's the same. It's the same frame and same tone for every single reference, and it's something that just, for whatever reason, finds its way in, and it's completely wacky,
Mhm.
but it's funny at the same time, and it actually makes sense. So it will be included. Just everybody watch out for it.
Hmm.
So what's next? I know that you're working on something now, but what's the future hold?
Uh, right now, we are working on a new sci-fi horror script. It's not a secret as far as what the title is. Of course, we've already kind of given
Alluded to it,
some
yeah.
little Easter eggs on LinkedIn about what it's going to end up being. Um, we actually decided on a title of Aberration. Um, like Brian said earlier, not to give too much away, but it is basically an homage to the 1950s sci-fi creature features. One references to the Blob.
Mhm.
It's nothing like the Blob in direct um means per se, but we did take some inspiration from it. So basically, I had mentioned to Brian that I wanted to set a story based in my home state, which is here in North Carolina. And again, I took inspiration from some of the local flavor and attractions in this state that I frequent now and have as a kid. And we decided to come up with the idea of setting it in an amusement park. So basically, it is the Blob attacks a amusement park full of people while riding a train ride.
Yeah, but instead of just straight out dissolving them, it does something else, which we're not going to give away. So it's not strictly the Blob.
Right.
But I was joking around. I said the title should be Invasion of the Blobby Things, and Rob's like, no.
It's funny because I'm looking at your the books, and all of the books in back of you are Memorial Day, except my one book, Rob versus the Entitled, and that was the
Hmm.
book that I guess somebody got triggered about, and Amazon took it off of the listing for 6 months, and I had to petition Amazon to put it back on, and it's. I think that we as society are getting triggered by everything. Everything is offensive. So
Yeah.
how do you guys factor that into your writing?
When we decided to write Memorial Day, and Brian and I, we take credit for we write and contribute to each other's pages. We don't by any means take 100% credit for anything that one or the other has done. So when I approached Brian and told him, I said, look, I want to start a collaboration. You the guy that I really want to do it with. It wasn't about me hoarding all the glory. It never is, or he either. It's about just writing something that we both love and that we think will capture people's imaginations, and all the while having fun at it. Now, with that being said, when I come up with the idea of doing Confederate Memorial Day here in the South, it is still a practice celebration. I know not everybody agrees with it, but it does have social relevance because it's set here in modern times, which this holiday, so to speak, is still practiced every year in different parts of the southern states on different days and different months. So we wanted to make people socially aware of this as well for those who didn't know it. But we also wanted to make it relevant to the fact that it's reality based, it's history based. We did a ton of research. We probably did 2 or 3 months of research before we ever started writing this thing, just to make sure that we were blending fact and fiction and it melded well enough together. But we wanted to make it be acceptable in today's world, but all still the while having ties to the history and the horrors and the trauma and everything that people were affected by during the Civil War and slavery and things like that. Not to give anything away, but there is a lot of references to the Civil War and the issue that Southerners and African Americans and the general populace suffered during this time, and we brought it into the day's standards. So we were aware of how that might affect some people, but honestly enough, we've had nothing but a great following out of it. People seem to love the story because horror is, for me, and I'm sure most people, it's a way to break away from everyday reality. Like Brian was saying, kind of leave your stress at the door and forget about everything that's happening in the world and in your life. It's a way to escape. And that's mainly what this story is about.
Yeah. Basically, I would say we don't really trash the holiday itself. It is more of a catalyst of history isn't always what it seems, which I'm not going to get into too much. Northerners would probably just love that the Southern town gets trashed. I guess, I don't know. But I mean, it's zombies. Come on. It could be anywhere. But one thing that I personally follow, and Rob goes along real well with it, is when there's always those nitpicky type of people. They'll sit in the audience and go, "That's not real. That's not real. That's not real." Not to that big a degree, but I am one. So that's where the research comes in. So like, the more realistic and believable the scenery is, the more believable the unreal could be, if you want to think of it that way. Like, zombies ain't real, but the town is real. The holiday is real. Hell, we even based it on Confederate Memorial Day in Mississippi this year.
Wow.
The calendar just lined up. And one time Rob even had like the full moon goes over the graveyard or whatever the scene was. I just said, let me look. I looked it up. It's supposed to be a 3/4 moon during that, that day. He was like, Rob, you got to change it. He's like, Mister, you're out researching me. Stop it.
Yeah, I'm a big sci-fi geek, and Stargate was one of my favorites because it mixed archaeology with science fiction, and you guys are kind of mixing history and zombies and all these things, these elements that people are gonna love.
Yeah, we're also changing up the zombie lore a little bit back to its origins, where it's more about the voodoo magic and, like I said, more like the Dungeons and Dragons style, where it's not like one shot to the head like you see lately. You bludgeon them to death just like any other creature. And there's some couple other twists in there that we're not going to reveal.
Oh, come on, reveal.
Nah.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm a product of the 70s and 80s. So one of the things that I did add that both of us kind of really liked and had a fun, keying in on was, we wrote certain scenes to 70s and 80s Southern rock, hard rock, and even which Brian come up with this. There's one character that works in a power plant in the town that we wrote resembling Robert Palmer. And Brian wanted to add in that, hey, let's let him listen to the power station from the 1980s when Palmer was a member of that band before they split up. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
okay.
mentioned that because he was working in a power station at the time. I was like, power station in a power station. I thought he would just go, "Are you kidding me?" No, he ran with it.
Yeah, and it turned out great.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I've noticed though a lot of movies with 70s and 80s soundtracks do well. Um, you know, Highlander with Queen, although Queen also did
Mhm.
Flash Gordon,
Flash
uh,
Gordon, yes.
and but you see a lot of Supernatural used a lot of the 70s and 80s music throughout, the show, and it just got the viewer, jazzed about what was happening.
yep. And it works well within the scenes. Of course, we don't want to copyright infringe on anybody, but just adding that, like I said, extra flavor to the scenes. And we keep referencing that we don't want to give away too much, but just little Easter eggs we wrote in. And I'll go ahead and be honest with you, and Brian got a kick out of this as well. This is where the research of history comes into play. Another piece of it, anyway. During the Civil War, I don't really remember the gentleman's name, but there was an actual, at that time, soldier that was shot in the forehead with a musket ball and lived for many years afterwards with the ball still encased in his brain, and he was still able to function a normal life up until the day that he did die. So you know, we wanted to have a character written in that way, but of course, since they're zombies, we weren't going to name them. But just in reference to the scenes with particular zombie in place, I decided to call him Bullet Head. So he's referenced in the scenes as Bullet Head. And one particular scene when the zombies first attacked the town with the regiment lieutenant and Bullet Head leading the charge, we wrote in Nazareth, hair the dog. Now you're messing with a son of a bitch. As far as the lyrics playing over the background.
And the dog's barking, he's ready to tear
Yeah,
your leg off.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that
my
was a good
co-writer
timing.
back
Hair of
here.
the dog.
So yeah, things like that is what we love to throw in, and we get a kick out of it. We always do.
Have you had any interest in having it turned into a movie?
We've had to sign a few NDAs, of course, and we've back and forth with. I will use the term loosely for lack of better words, but some high-profile people that have shown interest in it. But of course, in the film world, it takes time.
Yeah,
And Brian and I are
I've
not
been
in any
I've been
rush.
waiting 2 years to turn my Rob versus books into a TV show, and it's we thought we had somebody on the hook that was interested, but the writer's strike happened, and so everything got thrown back in the back burner. And I mean, we're talking back burner in a shed 3 houses down. Uh, so it's like starting all over again.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
our mentality around it that we both have an agreement on, we understand that it takes time, and we're okay with that because, by no means do we want to rush any project. We want to make, if somebody's sitting around waiting for the perfect project, it's like I told a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, you're going to have a long wait.
yeah.
Nothing's perfect, but we try to make it as fun and entertaining as possible. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So our concept is we're going to keep writing, we're going to keep pushing projects. And when the time hits, we're going to have a massive slate of projects that take your pick. It's whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what our ultimate goal is.
Yeah. I mean, when I first wrote my first book, 11 years ago, it was all about social media. And I just wanted to make it the easiest social media book ever. And every time I would shop it, all these producers wanted complicated technical books. And I'm like, no, my whole philosophy is keep it simple. So I created my own publishing company, and I learned things. I made mistakes. I moved on, and here we are, 43 books later, and it's fun. It's I don't treat it as something that's serious, because if I did, I'd lose my mind.
Right.
But it's a way for me to build my legacy, to showcase who I am, what I do, to teach the next generation, and those that want to write a book, we give them the chance to do that. And so it's a process. It takes time. If I knew 11 years ago that one day I would write a book that could be potentially a TV show, I probably wouldn't have never wrote the book, because that's what I wasn't shooting for that. I was just shooting to have this concept of, hey, Rob wrote a book, you know. And I think that sometimes the authors get into a process where they think, oh, I'm going to write this because I know deep down it's going to be a movie or TV show. Write it from your heart first, and then shop it later.
Agreed.
Yeah. And, when we started out this collaboration, that's what our intentions were. And, it still is right now. It's just like I told Brian when we first published Memorial Day, and, the other books that I wrote, personally before he and I became a team, it was never about, being great and famous. It was about just exposure, just getting our works out into the world and hopefully entertain people. And that's what we're going to continue to do, no matter what project we work together on, or, aside. Um, that's basically for me what it's all about. Just, being able to entertain people and, hopefully make people happy with the process.
Now, when you guys write, do you assign each other
Agreed.
tasks? Do you say, okay, you're going to do the research on this, you're going to write the funny bits, you're going to no?
No, not really. I mean, we'll write. Like, I just finished up, a few pages yesterday, and I sent it to Brian, and he stays up half the night last night writing 4 or 5 more pages, and we touched base daily, by either phone call or text. And hey, this is what I worked on. This is what I did. If you like it, great. If you don't, tweak it, and we'll go from there. And it's not about outdoing one another. It's just about having fun. And 99% of the time, if not more than that, we agree on every single thing that we talk about. We've had no issues working together whatsoever, and that's why I think Brian is a great partner.
Yeah, when I've collaborated on other people's.
I will say one thing to what he just said. I think, to me, sometimes I feel like there is a little bit of one-upmanship on the zingers and needling each other in the pages, just because we love picking on each other. It's like we're brothers of sorts. we will pick on each other, but it's love, and we put it into the pages just the same way.
That's right. We do it on a friendly basis.
Otherwise, yeah, he's right. We just write it, pass it, and come back.
Yeah, when I collaborate with others on books, and I'll go through and I'll look at it and say, well, maybe this sounds better this way. And then they'll come back and say, well, Rob, maybe it sounds better this way. And especially when I'm dealing with, a couple of my co-authors are from Canada, and they like to put extra vowels in words. I know it's spelled that way in Canada, but here in the United States, it's not spelled like that. So we have a joke about that, and it's like, the primary audience of the book is the U.S. So let's write U.S. words. So it's some back and forth.
Yeah,
Brian, as he mentioned earlier, he likes to call me Mr. Research, and I appreciate that, but I call him Mr. Analyst, but I have another name for him. But
You put a hyphen between the
he
L and the Y, and you get.
he nitpicks everything, which I'm glad he does. But I have to continually remind him, Brian, slow down, man. We're we're not done yet. we haven't even started editing. Just give me time.
Yeah.
But it all works out in the end.
So you guys like to edit throughout the process, or do you wait till the end and then edit it again?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
It really depends on the situation and
Yeah,
the
I'm a
scenario
edit
at hand.
as you're going guy. Yeah, I'm an edit as you go guy. So I always start back to the beginning. I read it, and I'll find another little one or two things like the apostrophe's missing or whatever. And as I'm rereading it, like the plot line will kind of go a little sideways or whatever, go down a different path. And it's just, again, the same idea of like, there's no true plot line. It's just how it feels. So every time I read it, I get a different flavor, and the pages come out, and he loves it. And then he sends it back to me with his flavor and so forth.
You remember those old books from the 80s, those choose your own adventure books, where you would read
Oh
a
yeah.
chapter and at the end it say, if you want to do it, if you would like to see the character go this way, flip to another chapter, or if you want to continue ahead. And
Right.
and you know, a lot of times
Yep.
that's how my writing is. I'll write sporadically. I'll write this one, this chapter, and then I'll skip it and write something else because my thought process is like, you know, an ADD squirrel. You know, I'm all over the place. And then I'll come back and I'll piece them all together again.
Well, I'm sure Brian probably, even though he didn't say it at one point or at all, I thought he might have had a idea that I might have been crazy when we were writing Memorial Day, because there was one particular point where we were probably halfway through. I said, "Hey, I've already got some ideas for the ending. I'm going to go ahead and write it out. You fill in the gaps." And I kind of jumped ahead that way, but again, like he said, it all worked out. So, you get that thought in your head and you want to try to run with it at that time, because it's a possibility that you're going to lose it, or you may change your mind at some point. But if it feels right, like he said, you run with it. And that's what we, typically do.
Besides getting the book on Amazon, where else can they get it?
Right now, it is actually only on Amazon with my other two, but Brian and I have an agreement that everyone that we do, whether it be his own, my own, or as a team, this is the format that we're going to run with. And again, it's just about getting exposure out there, because, as with your books, you really never know whose hands it's going to fall into.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just about getting people to read it. That's really what it's about.
So, my jest starting this podcast, calling you guys the Wonder Twins, was probably right on.
Yeah. We've actually joked around with a couple of
used
our
that
good
reference
friends on
before.
LinkedIn. Yeah. We've joked around with a couple of other good friends on LinkedIn that, Wonder Twin powers activate, and somebody will comment on something else and we just go with that too. So it's a constant thing that we do.
I posted that one day, and someone had written something, and they left the little punch emoji or the fist emoji. So I left one back and I put Wonder Twins activate, and they blocked me. No idea what I'm talking about.
You don't want him as a friend anyway if he doesn't like the Wonder Twins.
Like, but for all you youngsters out there who don't understand what we're talking about, the Wonder Twins were part of the Justice League cartoon back in 70s and probably early 80s, and
Yep.
they were two ridiculous characters that probably shouldn't have been there, that have become the joke of all jokes. But
Jar Jar Binks of the superheroes.
It was a Jar Jar Binks.
They had a pet or something, didn't they?
Yeah, pet monkey, I think.
They had some kind of a pet or something.
I think it was a monkey.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, in later renditions
Yes.
of I think they were on Smallville, and they were horrible. It's like I couldn't even watch that episode.
Yeah, well, they just like the Fantastic Four, they couldn't translate.
No. Yeah, and here's the thing about Hollywood right now. They're just rebooting everything, you know. How many renditions
Yeah,
of Batman can we see? How many renditions of Superman? Let's get some obscure characters up there that we can learn from. I mean, the
yeah. And if I
first
read
Aquaman was good,
correctly,
the
that
second one
they
was horrible.
fired all of them. Now they're going to start again.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many other characters that they could reference that they're not.
Mhm.
And it's not about bringing on a new character. It's about telling a better story. You know, I think after a while, people are like, well, you know what? I just give me a horror movie because I can't watch that emo Batman anymore. You know, it's
Yeah, I want to turn my brain off for 90 minutes.
so it's you got to give them something that allows them to escape, to learn something new, maybe to feel, to feel afraid or to laugh at something, but to give them the same
Be
character
afraid.
over and
Be
over and over
very afraid.
is horrible. So
Yeah. And, again, this is why we write the stories that we do. I mean, it's an escape. We go to the movies and sit in front of our TV in our living room because we want to escape from reality. And, Hollywood does remake after remake. I mean, I love all the characters that they do, but, you don't want to see 50 different renditions of them.
right,
Their story, you know what it's about. And Brian and I, while we may not write anything that's entirely original, we always try to bring a fresh perspective to it. And, again, we throw in things that we grew up on and things that we loved and still love. And, you know, hopefully one day, like you said earlier, we didn't go into this to say, hey, we want to turn it into a movie. It's just about entertaining people, like I, said earlier.
mhm,
And who knows, maybe one day it'll be culturally referenced. I mean, that'd be great if it is, but right now it's just about having fun.
yeah,
And that's why
As
we're trying to
Rob
get it out
said,
into the world.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, as Rob said in LinkedIn to a bunch of people once, I want to write something that I want to go see in the theater, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I write what, if I was paying 10, 15 bucks, whatever the cost of a ticket is nowadays. It's been a while since I've been in a movie, so I may seem kind of off on that price point. But yeah, if I was going to the theater, if I saw something like Memorial Day advertised on television, I would be like, that's the film that I want to see
mm,
because it looks so cool and so different.
yeah, yeah, and the big Hollywood blockbusters are going to be a thing of the past. Yes, they're they create FOMO, but here's the thing: is that there are a lot of movies that don't cost a lot of money to produce that are big hits, and people walk away going, wow, that really made me think. That really made me take a fresh look at those circumstances. And I could see, your book even being an episodic TV show, where it can go on and on and on, so not just a one-off movie.
Right.
It's
Well,
funny you
Brian and
mention
I
that because Rob's
actually,
got an idea of that
sorry.
for something else.
Yeah, we actually left Memorial Day open ended. So, whether it became film or not,
Right.
it could always be another book. So it's able to go forward if we want it to, with a whole different storyline, of course, but we left it available for something different.
Hmm.
And we'll probably end up doing that again with, others that we do. It's just a way to, make sure that, again, we're building on a slate of different ideas and expanding. And, we'll get to the point to where if somebody does want to pick something up, they're going to have a plethora of stuff to pick from. It's going to be so many. I mean, we've got so many ideas rattling around. We could go for years, but of course we're taking it one step at a time.
When I
Yeah, we've had ideas that we go, okay, let's start writing this. And like the next day, it's like, let's do this. And we love this more, but we still like that one. So that one's sitting over there. Then we're going to do this one. And then that one's over there. And it's like, it's never ending, which is a good thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I want to when I look at the cover, it reminds me though of the TV show Sleepy Hollow. And for I think the first 3 seasons it did very well. But when they
Yep.
moved it out of Sleepy Hollow into DC, it
Hmm.
killed the whole storyline, and people are like, "What the hell?"
Yep.
And so you're sometimes I think you can take the story too far. If you don't keep it based on the actual title of what it's supposed to be, you lose your audience.
Right. And, the way that we go about putting ideas on paper, we want to have fun, and we do have fun, but we try to keep it as reality based and grounded, and as simplistic as possible. We don't try to get too crazy with it. We just try to keep it as down to earth and just making it entertaining. That's really what it's all about.
So where do people find you? Where do they go besides Amazon? I mean, we've talked about LinkedIn. So is that where people should go to find you?
Well, Brian has his own website. I'm I'm actually in the middle of setting one up myself, but also as a side endeavor, which again can't give away too much detail, but it is something to look out for that Brian and I are venturing into in the near future. That will be tied to the scripts that we write, but in a completely different way that people won't even see coming.
Mm.
And there will be links attached to it as well for myself
I
and for
wonder
him.
how.
Like that mug, by the way.
Waiting for somebody to say something.
I was going to earlier, but I was like, I'm not going to throw it in too quick.
He's drinking zombie juice.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend, Christine, who's great with her cricket machine. She's got a little shop on Etsy and stuff like that. She made me this and a keychain for my birthday. And so that kind of segues into what we were, Rob's next idea as well, for controlling everything about our products. I hate to use the word product, but
Well, that if someone wanted to buy a Memorial Day mug,
mhm,
they have to go through you to get it. And I think that's great.
correct.
Now you're controlling uh the message that's going out there. You're controlling, where it's appearing. You got swag. Well, right now you have mugs, but maybe you have Memorial Day hats and shirts and
That's what we're looking at next, actually.
yeah.
Shirts and hats and the fun stuff that you could see walking down the street and whatever. It's like free billboard.
Yeah, and that's the way to extend the IP of your brand.
So you guys are forcing me to actually give away what I said I was not going to give away.
I didn't force
You just
you.
gave it away.
Twisting
Oh,
your
my
arm.
bad.
No, Brian is right. We're actually venturing into. We're going to somehow at some point, and the ideas are still flowing. But we're going to get into selling graphic T-shirts, but they are going to be the covers of all of our scripts, front and back. And we're going to do hats, mugs, T-shirts, things like that.
And I think that, if you can do it for yourself, you can do it for others. So now you created a sideline hustle that, you become that go-to person that can create all this stuff for other authors.
Correct. But we also like to think, excuse me, that without getting too far ahead of ourselves, we have actually talked in length over the phone that, if Memorial Day or Monstrosity or his scripts or any one of ours get picked up, at some point venturing into this clothing endeavor, when we're on set, cast and crew hopefully will, wear said garments. And, that's a good advertisement for us as well. I plan on wearing them around town when I'm out and about. So, it's just
Mhm.
another good way to get,
When
that material out there.
I was at Disney World about a month ago, and I saw a guy wearing a shirt, and on the back of it was just a QR code, and people would be taking their cameras, scanning this guy as he's getting on different rides. I don't know where it went because I didn't do it. But imagine if you're the author, you have your QR code there, so everybody's scanning it as you're walking around. Now they're going to your Amazon page, looking at your book.
That's the actual idea that we have, Rob. We're going to put a QR code on the t-shirts along with the front and back cover so that it will be linked to the books as well.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what the plan is.
You know, people need to find you, and what better way to have t-shirts? You're walking around anyway, and people have phones. They're going to scan you. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually read a joke about that. Somebody would wear a T-shirt with a QR code and it would just disable their phone. That's where you can pretend to take a picture of me, guys. Well, can't say the word.
And the thing is people share these pictures on social media.
I
So
know.
now you have other people scanning the code off Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, and so you know your message is getting out there to more people.
Exactly, and you know, hopefully that's the direction that we can take. So yeah, we have plans in place. The gears are turning. But you know, we're approaching one project at a time. Well, actually, that's a lie because we're working on 3 different things at the moment. But you know, we're just
Like
trying
Wixson,
to be as diligent as possible, and you know, just push forward as hard as we can.
Yeah, and we each have projects going on outside of our team, but we both always agree team first. They can wait.
Right.
You know, it's although my book authoring project started out with my book, my clients' books always come first before my own now. And you know, people are like, well, why? Hey, your books make money. Well, yeah, they do, but I make more from my clients. So
Yeah, and also the word of mouth that if you put them on the side too much, then they won't come back, and you will lose out on the repeat or other, referral business.
yeah.
Your books are already done. You can put one out whenever you want. You want other people coming in.
The Rob versus books basically write themselves at this point now.
True. And as you pointed out, we could be working on a side hustle. I know you don't. No side hustle for you, according to your books.
You know, I have so many things going on, and some days it's like, you know, I don't want to write anything. You know, I just want to put it down. I just want to go have some fun, and but my brain's always churning,
Yep.
and you know, so I don't think I could turn it off if I wanted to.
Agreed.
I've tried. It's no way possible. I mean,
That's why we're
can,
glad that we have this outlet.
Yeah, you can think that you can turn it off, but you know, I'm lying in bed at night thinking about what next scene I'm going to write.
And
So,
you know, I don't know about you guys, but you know, I've teased some of my stuff out to social, just to get people's thoughts. But a lot of times when I put the book together, I don't get their thoughts until I'm ready to put it out there. And I want people to read the complete thing. Hey, give me your feedback. And I always tell people, if you like it, give me your feedback. If you don't, I don't want to hear from you.
True. Who wants
Everybody has an opinion.
cool.
Well, if they give you a bad review, then obviously they were triggered, and you say, okay, actually you say, yeah. So what didn't you like? Next book.
You know, and the thing is a lot of times I send out the rough draft to people, and they'll come back, hey, and they'll list all the errors, grammatical errors and whatnot, and I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, and I go back and correct the book. It's like they edit it for me for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of why Rob keeps me around.
Well,
You have your moments,
any last
Brian.
thoughts that you guys want to give to the audience?
You know, I feel honored to be part of this. I'm glad that we finally got around to doing it. I know we've talked several times about getting together, and you know, outside world just
I think
step in and
you
couldn't. But
approached me when we was still in episodes like 250, and you're like, please, please.
Yeah, but you know, everything works out in its own due time. So that's what led to today, and I've enjoyed it. I really do.
I always say never rush the process, and you know your time will come.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
know for every entrepreneur out there, I you know don't skip steps. And people are like, well, Rob, what steps? No, I gotta go, and they just want to leapfrog everything.
Yeah.
You miss you miss so much stuff when you do that. There's all the life lessons that you're gonna miss by skipping steps.
Yeah. For me, I would say just keep doing what you love. The time will come. I mean, I've been acting for literally 20 years. I've been writing. I started out by editing others' books probably around 2012 ish. I started writing, actual writing, in 2016. That's because someone said, no, you're going to write my book and I'm going to give you all ideas. You're going to write every word. I was like, I'm going to prove this guy wrong and I'll suck. And well, here I am now. Apparently, I don't suck. I ain't Stephen King, but I don't suck. And
Uh,
Rob
it's
might say
funny.
otherwise. I don't know, but
It's
yeah, you
funny
don't
you
know where
mentioned
life's going
Stephen
to take you.
King.
Just don't turn it off.
Every time I go to
Yeah.
the grocery store, the one cashier says I resemble Stephen King, and I'm like, I don't see it. Maybe the younger Stephen King, not the older one, but she tells me that every time. But usually it's because my hair is so big, and I don't know. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to
Just
get a
like
haircut
Brian
today
said,
because
I'm sorry. Just like Brian said, you know, everything, well, I believe everything happens for a reason, good or bad. And, you know, that's why we don't rush because, you know, if our time comes, great. You know, if it don't, then, you know, we've still had fun along the way. And, you know, that's what really matters. So,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think that's very important to everybody. It's just have fun. Have fun. You know,
Mhm.
don't think that what you're going to do is going to, you know, make $1 million, you know, have a million fans. I always do it for one person, me, you know,
Exactly.
and I write the way I write because, you know, I don't want to be influenced by somebody else saying, hey, Rob, you should write more PC. No, I should write because I want to write it. And this is funny. And what you're telling me to change is not going to be funny and
Yeah,
ruins the whole thing.
yeah. Like I'd
Yep.
love to make enough to pay off my bills and quit the day job so I can just keep doing this. But yeah, I don't. It doesn't have to be billions of dollars and streams of awards and whatever. Just as long as the process can keep going and I can keep enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And, you know, and another good thing out of this process is that, you know, Brian and I started out as teammates, but we've become very close friends too. So that was another good part of, you know, collaborating with him. You know, we're friends along as business partners. So, you know, I can see he and I hopefully going a long way, you know, on both aspects. And that's what I'm really appreciative of.
you know, all the books that I've collaborated with other people is we've become great friends. And you know, there's always opportunities out there. And so for me, it's always been you're my friend first, my client second. And so when you stay on that friendship type, you know, path, things are going to work out, you know, better for you. So
Yeah,
Exactly.
the same thing is true back in from my filming days. The two films that stick in my mind the most really didn't go anywhere. You can't find them anywhere. They sit on a shelf, but we end up creating film families. And so just the whole thing about the making of the film was better than the film itself. So it's the same idea. You're just loving it so much.
right. And for you guys, maybe have a behind the scenes, you know, writing where people can kind of peer over your shoulder and look at how you're writing, you know, or you know, do some videos where you're showcasing something that you're doing. People love that stuff. They love to learn the process. They love to learn how, hey, this is what happened during this chapter. And this is the experiences we both learned. You know,
I
I
haven't
like
thought of that
showcasing
for
all
the
that.
writing, but I know I love that kind of stuff when it comes to behind the scenes at films, especially, oh man, the blooper reels.
Yeah.
It's like you can have blooper
Yep.
reel parties, forget the cast party, you know? That's the kind of thing I always think of. I didn't think about it for writing, so thank you.
Yeah, great ideas.
So I want to thank the audience, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. And thanks goes to Brian and Rob, and go visit them on their LinkedIn page and buy their book Memorial Day. Adios.
Thanks, Rob.